You're live.
Hi, welcome to Conscious Living Radio 100.5 FM in Vancouver, Co-op Radio. I'm Tasha Sims.
And I'm Marc Caron.
And our guest today, James Tsai. He works with dogs, all dogs, special focus on extremely dangerous dogs. Now, he works in a really unique way, which I wanted to have on the show. I think when you listen to this, you'll understand why. We've all heard about dog trainers over and over and over, a different trainer trying to solve a problem, and it costs a fortune and the results aren't always there. So this is another option. And when I saw James's work, I was so impressed. I thought, yeah, we've got to talk to him and share his knowledge with you guys out there. He works with destructuring dysfunctions in dogs, acknowledging behavior that's psychological, which most current methodology fails to comprehend. He's got no formal training. He doesn't follow the current trends. What he has is results, and just wait till you hear his story. Doesn't use treats, doesn't use shock collars or prongs. I think it's just a leash and his voice. So all the dogs he trains are free range in his home. They don't wear a muzzle. And there are definitely, when you hear about these dogs, high risks, some of them, but also huge rewards. He's saving lives. Some of these dogs were labeled so vicious, so hopeless, like too dangerous, basically, to save, and where killing was the only option. Thankfully, they brought in James. His rescue is called Arf, Arf, Bark, Bark, and his tagline on all his social media, be dog woke for the intellectual, intuitive dog owner. So that too seemed like a perfect fit for you guys. Who doesn't want to be dog woke? Although what I know is true is you could be kind of woke and still not speak dog, as I call it. It's true. I know lots of awake people who meditate and are totally connected with one, and they're not necessarily understanding their dog. So welcome to the show, James. I'm super excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Tasha and Marc, for inviting me on the show. And I look forward to being able to talk about what I do.
Your passion here. I want to start with your personal story because I don't know it. How did you get involved in this whole world of helping dogs before we even move to the specific stories? Just what drew you to this world?
Well, I'll go back into my background then. As a child, I was deathly afraid of dogs. So around the age of 5 years old, 6 years old, I remember that I was in a physical ed class and we were outside running around. And I had no experience with dogs. So there was a German Shepherd that was in the apartment building complex. He was out running, no idea, and he started chasing all of us kids around the area. I completely freaked out and I broke away from the pack. And of course, as I'm running away, screaming and crying, this dog is chasing me, thinking I'm playing around with him. And I completely broke down and was just absolutely frantic. And the teacher stopped me, held me, and I was just bawling my eyes out. And I was deathly afraid of dogs till I was in my young adulthood. So even when I met somebody's golden retriever, I was deathly afraid of them. Like even just to pet them, and they're usually a pretty nice disposition. Fast forward to probably around 2013, I was going out with somebody for a couple of years, and we had broken up, and she had a Great Dane, and I really wanted to have a Great Dane. So I decided to look at adopting one. First, I was going to buy one, then I thought, well, I would rather just adopt.
You were still afraid of dogs?
I was okay. I was all right. I wasn't a big fan, but I just got to really enjoy being around her dog, and it was just something that was really nice, other than any emotional affectation. So I ended up adopting a Great Dane. His name was Lincoln. He's 154 pounds, and so he's a very strong, big dog, and he was about 5.5 years of age, and I really had no idea what to do. And it turned out that he had some behavioral issues which weren't fully disclosed, and it usually doesn't happen. People will surrender or relinquish their dog without really telling you everything, because they don't want you to say no. Because if they say no, then unfortunately their dog doesn't have too much of a future in most cases when their dogs are behaviorally challenged. And then, so anyhow, I had him, and he was cool for a little bit, and then he started exhibiting very difficult behaviors. He would lunge at people seemingly randomly. He would have significant prey drive, extremely significant prey drive. And I understand that when he was a puppy, he actually caught a baby squirrel, killed the baby squirrel, and held the body for about 45 minutes before they could get him away. He had gone through a lot of challenges with that family. They put him into a kennel system for about 6 months as they boarded him. They pretty well abandoned him. So when I found out that they were surrendering him through other Great Dane rescues, I was like, okay, cool. And I didn't know anything that was happening. So we'd be walking down an intersection, like a crosswalk, and somebody would be walking across in the intersection, and just suddenly Lincoln would just lunge at the guy.
Right.
And it was just like, holy cow. And people would just yell at me, and they scream at me, and they'd be saying things like, kill your dog. Like they wouldn't just, they weren't polite. And they were really
scared.
upset.
This is a pony. It's a Great Dane.
He's big. I mean, he was big. He's not the biggest. And so there's a lot of issues. So I tried to follow through with some traditional aspects of, you watch the videos, you read the stories of all the other trainers, and like that gentleman, Cesar Milan, that you were talking about. And nothing was working. Absolutely nothing was working. And I was talking to Elaine Dixon, who's the founder of New Hope for Danes. It's the oldest Great Dane rescue in Canada. It's she's been running it since 1984 and has saved over 5,000 Great Danes and mixes. And she would give me a little bit of advice. And I thought, okay, it's not working. And so eventually I just came to the conclusion, all the anecdotal information we read and the academia that's out there saying, dogs have a similarity of personality to that of a child. So I thought, okay, heck, I'll just treat him like a kid. So I just started talking to him, but I wasn't going to talk to him in a disingenuous tone, in a really regular voice and contextual and conversational. And from there, I started being able to stabilize his behavior. And I didn't use treats. I was using treats like crazy. And with a Great Dane, they are eating a lot of treats. You can't just give them a little piece. You got to give them a whole piece. And so it just didn't make sense to me. So I just started connecting with them on that end and was able to stabilize them. And I would feel that more of a visceral connection with them. And so the conversation would go on and be contextual in that sense of it, where I would speak to him, relevant words to him, relevant conversational words to him, etc. And from there, I started developing, intuitive aspects of it. And then I wanted to get a foster, another dog, because always, you can't have just one. So I talked to the rescue, and for some reason, Elaine sent me a couple of dogs and referrals to dogs that are Great Danes that had behavioral issues. And these are dogs that have attacked people and trial by fire. And so they would come after me, and they'd come after Lincoln. They'd attack Lincoln. They try to attack me. And they're not 50, 70, 100-pound dogs. These are significant dogs. So it's quite ferocious. And from there, I just started developing that skill set. And Lincoln tragically became paraplegic and died suddenly of severe respiratory distress at the emergency hospital. And I was completely just distraught. My best friend at the time there, he had attended with my the woman I was living with at the time. And so he said the way I was crying, he thought was only in movies, and he thought was fake. He's like, and he was being sincere. And I was like, well, yeah, it's a feeling and all that. And so I was really broken. And so my thought was, I'm never going to have another dog again. That was it. I can't handle the grief. It was so painful and so hurtful. And, with a Great Dane, when you come home to a place where a Great Dane would normally live on a twin size bed, everything is empty. Yeah. So what I thought to myself is, I need to celebrate and tribute Lincoln's life. So literally a week later, I started looking for another Great Dane. And I thought I will look for a senior Great Dane. So that way I already am prepared. He's going to die no matter what. And I'm going to look for a Great Dane that has significant behavioral issues. And so I found on through Save Rocky, the Great Dane Rescue and Rehab charity. They're the largest nationwide Great Dane rescue in the U.S. And they had a Great Dane named Nero, 10 years old, in Alabama. And he had been caged for 7 years, chained up for 3 years. He was just really very quite dangerous. He was weighing 75 pounds instead of 140 pounds when they dropped him off at a kill shelter. And when he got pulled from the shelter into the rescue, into the fosters, he would attempt to attack male adopters. So a guy would come by, and the foster would have the fencing. And
I would love, as you tell your story, I would love people to understand what you're doing. And then I want to get to the stories of all the different dogs. Can we do that?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so let's put a pin in Nero. Nero's about to come into your life, but I have so many questions about everything you've already just shared.
Okay.
You started out with a fear of dogs.
Yes.
And part of this show, Conscious Living, is this understanding that from our wounds, sometimes our greatest gifts come. And that's what it sounds like as I'm listening to you speak. Would you say that's true? That from this fear and then opening to the idea of having a dog and then having this particular obstacle with this dog who you loved so dearly, that your learning came, how would you describe how your learning came? I know you say trial and error, but that's not, there's something else going on here. And I'd love to break that down, especially when you use words like intuition. What's actually happening that's guiding you to understand how to work with this dog and the problems as they come up? What are you doing?
I'm watching for literal sentient trait markers in the dog.
What's that? A sentient trait
same thing
marker.
as if we would look at a human being and we could see how their behavior is, how they walk. We can tell if somebody has a limp, even if it's a slight limp. We can tell if someone has an affectation, a physicality, such as their back is stooped. And we can also extrapolate from that how the possible life of that person could have been. We speculate. And I say, it's kind of like your friend is going out with somebody, met them off of Tinder, and then you'll say, send me a photo. And then you start looking at the photo and say, well, he looks this way or she looks that way. Send me a screenshot of their description. And then we infer like we read someone's text. So when it comes to dogs, with Lincoln, for example, in a very, nascent perspective, I was like, okay, he's doing this, he's doing that. And then I would start correlating and conflating his behavior versus what I thought on a psychological process of what humans do. So
you are always mapping it over to an
100%.
understanding of human psychology.
Yes.
And that's different in the dog world. Aren't they mapping over to wolf psychology mostly?
I would say that their human conjectured is somewhat immature in their ability and skill set. And I can say that in a not an arrogant or conceited manner. Because my success and progress rate is 100%. It's unmatched. There's no medication or treats. Nothing at all is used. Whereas what current academia is applying is the unfortunate aspect of giving dog treats and to address anger issues or dysfunctions. And if we look at what Charles Darwin has said in regards to evolution, the canine species fights to the death over food. So when you're giving an angry dog food, you're literally eliciting and enabling predatory instinct, which is why academia has an ability to achieve only a success rate up to a bite level 5 dog. A bite level 6 dog, which has killed a person or a human, they're completely unsuccessful. And
so I'm going to get into that scale too in just a sec before we go into biting.
I've never even heard of that scale before. That's
your VID scale, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Let's just go a little slower.
Sorry.
So a dog comes along.
Yes.
I'm going to generalize it now. I'm going to take it out of the personal for a sec. And you ask, the first thing you do, and this is actually how I met you, is I saw your YouTubes. I saw some other, I think I read a blog, and then I went, I know you're working with aggressive dogs, but I have basically given up with my girl. She's not aggressive. She is the purest, most gentle. She has no prey drive at all. She would go up to a crow or a squirrel and kiss it. Swear to God. However, there's problematic behavior. And I thought, well, it can't hurt to ask. And so I asked you about it. Maybe we'll get into that later in the show. But you basically said, send me a photograph. That was your first response. So I want to know, for like people listening, if they were to work with you, you ask for a photograph. How do you see, are you looking for sentient markers in the photograph? What are you doing in a still?
Physical structure. So it's the same thing as you look at a photo again, your friend sends you the photo of the woman or man that they're going out with, and you look at them, do they have kind eyes or not?
It's a hit. It's an intuitive hit that you're getting.
It is intuitive to a point, but it's no different than what AI would do in regards to mapping out the facial structure of a person or physical structure. So we can get into that part a little bit later on as well in that topic. But so I'm looking for the way that the dog has developed physically. And so there's going to be parts where you're going to see, for example, on a human being, one eye is smaller than the other. You're going to see certain developmental traits, a certain turn in the face as well, which gives indications of what their personality is like. And so I read both human and dog extremely deeply. And it's really, sometimes it's not that fun. And what it is again, when I look at the photo, I'm looking at the way the dog is held, their face and their body position. And again, if you're uncomfortable and you're sitting somewhere, you're going to sit uncomfortably. And so that shows in the photos, as well as what the owner's description is of their dog. So they're going to write in that same pattern of how they describe the personality, whether or not the prose of the language is there, the flow, the tone, the grammatical structure, the intonation of the words themselves, as well as the choice of vocabulary. So whatever they're using as their lexicon is how they are going to have that emotive or dispassionate affectation or franchisement with their dog. And so if you can go to my website and you'll see where I'm actually looking at screenshots of people's dogs. So these are not anecdotal as per se. And that structure.
Go ahead.
So that structure is highly indicative of what the dog's personality is going to be like. And it is because you can see it in the eyes, as you can see in the kindness of, or not the kindness of people's eyes. All of that comes from that part. And we are nonverbal no more. Dogs are nonverbal 98% of the time. So we have ourselves missed those body language cues, which are still able to be captured by a photo.
Can you teach this to dog owners so they can read their own dog better?
Yes. So a lot of times I will reply back to somebody, okay, here's a situation, like, for example, with your dog being introverted. So then I'll write back and say your dog has this type of personality and this type of psychological issues. I don't go into too much of depth because, of course, I'm not going to, you have to book a session with me. But I will go into information about their structure and just let them understand that I know what they're talking about. And then I bring up key traits of their dog and they go, wow, that's right. And it can be taught to them because I say to them, when you look at a photo of your own dog, or when you look at a photo of a dog you're about to adopt, you're going to go through 200-300 photos of different dogs, and you will go, oh, that one I like because emotionally it affects you. There's a context. So I look at that same aspect of what I call love into that dog's photo, and I find that affectation. And then of course I destructure the way the dog looks physically and the choice of photos and the description.
Wow, I love that.
So I have a question. When we talk about characteristics of a dog, what difference does breed play in terms of characteristics? Because there's dog characteristics. Different breeds seem to have different characteristics and behaviors. And where does that come into play in terms of how you engage with them? Is the process the same, or?
Yeah, so it's really kind of cool that you asked that, because I see quite often people tell me, hey, you know what, I hired a breed specific dog trainer. Unfortunately, pit bulls is unfortunately very negatively perceived. And I'll just say, just for people, less than 5% of the dogs that I work with are actually pit bulls. It's other breeds. So I want to say that. But when I run into somebody who says, I went to a breed specific specialist, a pit bull specialist, it says to me that particular professional has a very limited envelope of comprehension. Because if they're only dealing with one type of breed, means that their ability to be expansive is not there. They don't have the ability to see other aspects. I can barely see him, but it's that part where, so what happens, Marc, there is you talk to him too much. So you can see it by his own physical behavior, Marc. And when you do talk to him, you talk to him in structured sentences all the time. And that's just looking at that hit on your dog just like that. So what ends up happening is that when you say you're a breed-specific trainer, again, is you're saying that you're limited in your comprehension outside of it. If we look at the human psychology, there are 8 different personality types, I believe. And with dogs, I posted that there's 4. And what ends up happening is when someone says, again, they're breed-specific, it's the same thing as me saying, I have a driving school and I only teach Chinese people.
Right. Or I'll only teach you how to drive a convertible, because you got to have a scarf on to not wreck your hair.
and a standard as well, standard gearing. So that's where it comes to that part when it says, the breeds and all that stuff. I'm working with a company partnering right now in the United States in regards to AI, and I can't go into too much detail right now. But one of the questions that I was asked in regards to our development is, can we see the things that you see, James? And I say, yes, you can, but it is going to be data profound. There's an immense amount of information.
Data profound?
Yeah, it's just so much information, so much structure, because there's going to be different breeds, as Marc is saying there, all these parts, and then we're going to have to try to conflate a generality of perception from the AI's perspective, and that's going to be contextual as well as conceptual. So when it comes to what one dog is or what one dog isn't, doesn't matter to me.
It's individual.
It is 100% individual.
So what is the difference between training a dog and downtraining? I hadn't heard the term downtraining before.
Downtraining is a term that I've coined. So as much as we can train a dog to do something, we can train a dog not to do something as per se, and that's through self-regulation and self-soothing of their psychological process at a higher emotional intelligence level. So when I say downtraining, it's taking a dog from an extreme set of behaviors to a point where they're able to self-regulate, to think, to calm themselves down.
And would a dog, and I think, sorry to be specific, but honestly, I have to ask this. That's what I see with my dog, is she completely is regulated with me. She does not exhibit the behavior when she's excited with other people that she does with me. I just speak like she understands what I'm saying, and we are copacetic. So we have no problems, basically, until other people come into the mix. And then what is it that obviously she can self-soothe because it's not happening with me. What is it that's happening with other people to cause her to jump and be all excited and put their arm in her mouth without bite, of course?
It's an introverted aspect on her end. It's an interdependency that she has with you, and as well as a self-esteem issue. So your dog is not able to process those emotional contexts because she is somewhat quite reliant on the relationship that she has with you, which if we had talked a bit more about that, would be a point that she has a cognitive processing which is above average, and not every dog is smart, I can tell you that. So I don't want people to go, oh my dog's smart too, and people who know me know that I don't throw those labels around. So she has a bit of a higher cognitive processing, which is understimulated. And so that causes a low self-esteem issue, which then causes her to create interdependent behavior with you. And
so how do you increase a dog's ability to, what would you do to meet those challenges? Let's say, well, let's start with, what's cool when I listen to you talk is I love working with couples. I'm also a psychotherapist. And so much of this is relevant to codependent relationships. And I almost wonder, I want to ask you the question to see if your answer parallels what I would be advocating for couples who are codependent. How do you move a dog from a codependent relationship? Or what do you have to change to facilitate this dog developing more independence and regulation? Would that be a better way to ask it?
Absolutely. So one of the key points I always say is to use your dog's name. So even throughout our conversation, and I don't usually seed it in as well, I don't try to plant that aspect of it. So then, on your end, your mention of your dog's name has not occurred at all. And so what ends up happening is that you have an emotional disenfranchisement with your dog because you're not saying her name. Just like, if you're going out with somebody, you go and say, my boyfriend, John. And the minute you break up with John, it's my ex-boyfriend.
You don't say, you say the dog, the guy.
The guy, the guy.
Lucy, come here.
Right.
Oh, Luce.
So there's that. And then it's the aspect of pronouncing and creating individualization. Then you create an emotional franchisement with your dog. You create that connection, that emotional connection. Because, and I use these anecdotes and human analogies with all the people that I work with when they hire me, is, for example, if you're sitting at a restaurant talking to somebody with a group of people pre-COVID, and you're talking blah, 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 and someone goes, James, what? I'm going to look, I'm going to hear my name. If you're at the supermarket and you're just shopping by yourself and then you hear someone say, Tasha, you're going to look up and it's going to be a parent talking to their child. We're already trained to hear our name.
Right.
When we talk to our dogs, we talk extraneous and we talk disingenuous. How many times have you run into people talking to their dog going, hi, how are you? Oh, you're such a cute little thing. And then they talk to them. Hey, Mark, how's it going? How are you? Did you have a good day? How was your
Same
seminar?
with babies. Same thing people do with babies. They don't talk normally.
If you talk to a 3-year-old child like that, the child's going to say to you, don't talk to me like a baby.
Right.
Even though they know, and you know that they are a baby.
Yeah.
And that's what ends up happening. So your dog, Lucy, hears you talking contextually all the time with people. Regular tone of voice. You're talking blah, 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 da, da, da. How's it going? The weather, etc. Hi, Lucy. Right off the bat, you already can tell. And again, if I'm talking to Mark, how's it going? Hi, Tasha. How are you? Blah, blah. You would right off the bat go, this guy's a jerk.
Yeah. So they're reading, you're saying they are responding to tone. They're besides just the words as well.
So I don't speak in the point of a passive aspect of appreciation, but I speak on an emotionally complex assimilation and processing of what is going as the dog is actively involved in a functional sentient process. So my process is I am actually communicating with the dog because, again, 98% of the time they're nonverbal, which means that whenever you say something, it means a heck of a lot to them. And so we have to use words that are relevant. So there's a video on my TikTok where I taught one of my Great Danes that is now adopted out in the US, Anthony, the objectification of the phrase can of tuna. And that took 25 minutes to teach him that. And you can see the aspect of processing cognitively what's going on. So when you talk to Lucy, for example, one of the things I would say is for you to stop trying to convince her to integrate and to really just speak to her in a more of a lower tone with less intonation at the high end so that you have more of a mid-range to her. So then she starts to listen to a bass tone of what you're saying. And then she understands relevance because then she will start hearing the same bass tone of relevancy and that you talk to your clients. And you'll see that there'll be a shift in her behavior from
with other people.
With other people. So when you're talking to her, she will hear that similarity of tone that you're speaking to them, to her, and that's why she has introverted and self-esteem issues as well as interdependency issues.
Because you're saying I'm not doing that.
You're not
I'm
doing
too much inflection and treating her like some cute dog.
Not inflection. Use her name more often and don't say it extraneous and don't throw it around as if it is just trick or treat candy, so to speak. You've got to use her name relevant. Otherwise, she's not going to know who she is.
So in the situation, which I actually think, I've tried everything to stop it, from powering up to leash training to treats. I've tried it all. So the only thing that has actually, and this may be fit with what you're saying, lowered it, is we move away from the incident as it's happening. And I look at her and I go, that was really extra. Exactly like I'd say to my girlfriend, like who was being a drama queen. I'd go, total drama queen, totally not necessary. You see him, you just saw that person 10 minutes ago. So I do one of those. And for some weird reason, she watches the whole, it's like she's listening to that. I know it sounds kind of weird, but is that what you're saying? Do more of that?
Right. And what I want people to do is to get away from thinking that what they're doing is weird or odd, because then we disrespect ourselves.
Wow. But that's totally unique to anything that would be taught, for sure.
Absolutely. So, my work has been successful, literally an unmatched 100% across the entire dysfunction spectrum, from mild issues to extremely predatorial behavior where dogs have attempted to kill human beings, and I work along with them. And so, the anthropomorphic perspective of treats and so forth, and seeing dogs as if they don't have feelings is completely disingenuous, and it is really an identifiable destruction that your dog understands, because cognitively they're able to process what's going on. They have an emotional process that is much more advanced, but we as arrogant human beings see dogs as dumb animals.
Right.
That's why we give them treats, because we think they're stupid. So, well, and then without even realizing the contradiction to evolution itself. Right. And so my success rate, again, is not because it's 100% because of I'm just whatever, great or whatever. It isn't. It's because I'm actually just talking to them. So when I meet a dog in person, it takes me less than 1 minute to destructure their entire psychological process. And then I make adjustments for tone and I make adjustments for pacing. I'm quite verbose normally, but in person, when I work with a dog, I'm quite exact with my words, because words matter. And it's like you meet somebody who talks like this, you listen to everything they're saying, because if you don't,
Yeah.
then they have to talk all over again. You're like, oh, please don't repeat yourself. You have to listen to every word because it means something. There's a relevancy. So what happens with Lucy is she needs to understand that you are no longer trying so hard to talk to her versus just talking to her.
And telling her what's what.
You don't have to tell her what's what.
Around this one behavior. I think she knows. I absolutely think she knows. She'll look at like that I don't like it, that I don't know. And that's my point, is why do you keep doing it?
Because she has not learned that you're parenting her with love and firmness. And I'm not saying firmness in the aspect of alpha, but firmness as in how your mom would say to you, just stop that. Right. And you're like, oh gosh, the mom voice came out. Right. But then at the same time, you're not admonishing and punishing her because it's not relatively, there's no reason to. Right. She's just behaving as she is out of her anxieties, just like your friend who is, somewhat, being silly behavior on her end. You're not going to admonish them because you think to yourself and you feel respectful for her and you say, she understands what I'm saying. I don't have to repeat myself.
Right. So would you remove her from the situation though? Is that the way to stop it? Because it needs to stop.
Absolutely not. Because if you remove someone from their environment, they don't learn the cognitive experience of it. There's no cogency that's attached to it once you remove the person. How do you learn to experience through a difficult environment if you're taken away from it? Versus a human being, because we're premeditative in our behaviors. So we kind of like, I'm going to think about this. Whereas a dog is blatantly codependent. I say they're overt codependent, so they're willing to rely on us as for guidance, etc. And so when you let Lucy understand how you understand that she has anxiety issues and that you're not downplaying it, you're not treating her as if it's something dumb and silly, then she understands, holy cow, my mom is listening to me now. It's like the 3-year-old child going, mom, 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 mom. Like, or the 3-year-old child that comes up to you with a stick drawing crayon thing, and the parent's like, oh, this is really beautiful, and then they throw it away. But they don't go, oh, this is really beautiful. They go, oh, that is really nice. I really like that. Let me put it away, and then it goes in the garbage later on. Sorry for all the kids out there, but that's like traumatizes. But you see what I mean? You are going to truly, genuinely communicate with a child. You would do so with a dog.
I love what you're saying. I'm going to have you over because I think I'm doing that, but I'm not going to argue at all because I don't want to be right. I just would love to support whatever it is I need to do to help her in this next phase. So we're going to do a session at some point.
So I have a question on the other side, if I may. Yes. Are you switching gears, Tasha?
I want to go back to Nero. So ask your question, then we'll go right back to Nero.
I think it's interesting you're talking about talking to your dogs. Just see my dog, Rocky, and he's, you say, I talk to him too much. Well, what about my dog who's having a conversation with me? And I don't mean barking. He's literally, hey, people are like, it's the cutest thing and it's funny. I'd love to know what he's actually saying, but we literally have a conversation.
Yeah. And so what's happening is because it's nonverbal communication. So when we start, so for example, when we overtalk to our dog, then your dog is unable to process what you're saying because there's too much going on. They don't learn each word individually. For example, if you run into a person who's visiting the country in a different language and they're asking for directions, you're not going to be verbose. You're going to be very exact with just a few number of words used that are relevant, contextual to where they need to get to. With your dog, Rocky, is that sense of he has learned that how he gets an emotional relationship with you is by engaging you into an extraneous and disingenuous conversation.
Well, so I like to think it was
genuine.
Yes, genuine. But yeah, very, very interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, when Rocky is actually talking to you, reduce the number of words that you're saying and do a slight enunciation to it versus what I was saying, like that shooting of just sentence blocks at him. Mm-hmm. And then you will see him starting to pause when he's conversing with you. And then he starts to have a comprehension of that communication because again, dogs are nonverbal. And if we look at the wolf, 2 wolves hunting prey and they're running down the path, they can literally turn on a dime with each other as they hunt prey, even though 150, 200 meters apart, because a nonverbal communication is happening. When we overtalk to our dogs, we're literally saying to them, I don't know what you're saying. And your dog is looking at you like, you don't understand what I'm talking about, do you? Because you keep talking at me.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
So I know we only have like 5 or 6 minutes. So I really want to make.
We have more time.
We said 5 too. So that's to me 5 minutes, but I'll let you be our timekeeper. Okay.
Okay. I've got about 15 minutes. I'll double check.
I'll just let you be that man.
Okay.
You be the time person. But I want to talk about Nero, and I want you to pick up your story. Processing, and I know and maybe you could touch on this idea of processing base emotions. How do you help a dog? How did you help Nero process base emotions?
Okay, so Nero, having been Cajuns and no socialization, and I'll try to expedite my conversation here, the topic. So he would be attacking prospective adoptions by literally walking casually in the yard, and then rushing the person, grabbing them, trying to pull them into the foster's yard. He grabbed an adult woman about 250 pounds, pulled her off the couch in the family home, and then inflicted significant wounding. So they said to me, "Do you want him still? Because we understand he's 10 years old. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, etc." I said, "Send him over to me." And we have had some difficult environments where one time he actually grabbed me by the top of the head and caused both temples to bleed at the same time. Those issues, when things like that happen, can't get upset, because the dog is behaving as a dog, as a child is behaving as a child. You start to freak out on them. All you do is say to them, "I knew I can't trust you." And if you come from a traumatic experience, like, again, going out with somebody who is not good for you, and you start to go back to that same person and they treat you the same way, the vicious cycle continues. And when it comes to a trust aspect, like with Nero, is to address his dysfunction of not being able to trust somebody. It's very basic aspect, but it's very, very, very nuanced, like an iceberg of behavior.
So what did you do in that moment? He grabs your temple. I mean, that's terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was in the dark as well. And so I essentially said to him, I just said, "That's not funny, silly boy. That's not okay." Just core aspects of tone, controlled my voice without being very, very, very scared. There's videos of other interactions that his rescue has seen that I was lucky to get on tape, which are very, very threatening. And I just control my voice. So I fake the calmness, because otherwise you can hear the strain. When you talk to somebody on the phone, you can hear them talking odd one day. You're like, "I think something's wrong with him." And then you find out that his mom passed away. So you go, "Oh, I figured it out." So it's our predator instinct that we have inherent in us. It's evolutional. So I apply those things with him, and then I make adjustments for his behavior at the dog's processing speed, which is 1/10 of a second. You take a treat, you hold it over a dog's face, they can catch it in midair. We try it with the black Visa card, and we can't. We're like, "Hey!" So what ends up happening is the processing is that quick. So when I ask a dog to do something and they comply, I say thank you almost immediately, and it seems like, oh well, it makes no sense, but I'm actually speaking to the dog's processing speed. And so when it comes to aspects of Nero's behavior,
and do dogs process at different speeds? Every dog?
They're processing at about 1/10 of a second.
Every dog.
Every dog.
Okay.
They're born predators. So also when they have an emotional aspect of it, I call it the auxiliary power of emotions, which is the basic emotions of fear and anger. Joy is a consequential behavior because joy is a more complex emotion. And again, when it comes to complex emotions, such as the common one, envy or jealousy, when you're petting one dog and the other dog comes over, that's a very complex emotion for a dog to process, because you're dealing with not just self-esteem issues, confidence, codependency, familial structure of the threat of losing it, loss, grief, all these disturbances, competition in regards to resourcing. All these behaviors are starting to become part of that dog's processing of the complexity. Right. And of course, they don't know how to deal with it. So they structure down to the very core aspects of behavior, which is, okay, I need to defend what is ours, not mine, but ours.
And what about love?
Love is an extremely important unconditional aspect. And there's a slogan that is out there that everyone's heard, that, the dog is the only creature on this earth that loves you more than he loves himself. And you've heard that phrase, and it's been attributed to all these different people, and it's completely wrong. Because to love someone or something more than you love yourself is an infatuation. So the dog is the only creature on this earth that loves you as much as he loves himself. That's an equitable aspect of true love. And that's what we all seek for as our own human relationships, as we seek for with animals.
So here's my question on that, because that you brought something up that kind of strikes me, because you're talking about talking to your dogs as a dog versus a human and all of those kinds of behavioral aspects. When we take a look at a dog, you talk about the wolves. Wolves don't need human love. Why are dogs so attached to the human love and connection when they're a dog? Does that make sense?
It's an excellent question, because that is brought up often. And so we look at the wolf structure of alpha male, alpha female, which is being debunked anyways by the individual who himself brought it up over time. If we look at the structure of the wolf pack, it's actually familial, mom and dad. As we guard our family, ourselves, and our property, so does the wolf pack do so as well. So it's a familial association. So they will guard what's going on. Then when we talk about the aspect of the dog themselves being domesticated, for example, right? Domesticated, and the arrogance of scientists out there, and there's a lot of academics and well-known animal lawyers that believe that part of it. The aspect I call is emotional isomorphism, which is just that biological differences and the aspects of emotional, similarities in that. And then we say, the scientists say, hey, you know what? We domesticated the dog, which is completely an arrogant human statement to say. They're saying, well, because, 27,000 years ago in Russia, you can find signs of the dog being around human encampments, etc. And so we domesticated the dog. Absolutely impossible. Because to trust another human being, to trust a cross species, implies an amazing amount of emotional context for the dog to exhibit and to process. On top of that, you take a dog that is domesticated in your home, right? You have intact, right? Not neutered, intact dog. You take that domesticated dog, take him out to the wild, 50 million miles away from anywhere, and you drop him off, and he finds another dog, and they procreate. In 3 generations, the domesticated traits will have already been diluted through the gene structure. But if you take a dog that is truly feral, has never seen human beings, and I talk about Formosan mountain dogs in Taiwan, they live in the mountains, there's almost 2 million of them. You take a feral dog, you trap them, bring them in, you can actually domesticate that feral dog. Just like Minky in that video from the meat dog farm, you can domesticate that dog by addressing their aspects of emotion processing. And then also respecting the fact of the cognitive processing part. If you respect someone, they listen to you, they respect you, they love you back as well. So this is the part where science has failed. They, honestly, bite level 6 is a dog that kills, which is a standard by the current training industry out there. And they kill dogs at that level, whereas the dogs I take psychologically far exceed the dangerous predatorial behavior that any of these people will ever come across, because I'm addressing on the emotion and the cognitive processing that the dog has at their level.
And you've got a dog, Griffin, now, a Great Dane from Indiana. How's that going? You just got him, a week ago?
Yeah, a week and a half ago. And if you look at his process, he has, it's just tragic, the aspects of the training industry. So 2 years old, from the age of 6 months, he was on 80 milligrams of Prozac and 750 milligrams of trazodone from 6 months of age. And that is more than you would have as an inpatient in a hospital for an adult. And that's 2 of them going on, plus a prong collar. So he had extremely dangerous behaviors. He has 16 bites on him is what I found out now, as well as his ability to process has been completely fogged. And it's the same thing, you go to a bar and someone puts something in your drink, you try to struggle to stay conscious. So that's why I don't believe in the medication, because you don't need to. And you see that with Gordon, the disabled bulldog with the Dandy Walker syndrome.
And just for our listeners to note, all of these videos will be available online. James is going to tell us his site, but also at consciouslivingradio.org, you can watch these dogs being trained.
And I put the link in below if you're watching on Facebook before that time happens. It's right down below in the comments on Facebook as well.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah. And so Griffin, who he's now named David, and I do so because I want to name that as reflective of his high autonomous cogency. So 2 years of age, 170 pounds. He'll get close to 200. He's 38 inches at the withers. So just his physical behavior of just a minor bite would make him an unfortunate candidate for death. His significant history, being turned down by every rescue, every trainer in the country, the continent, I guess, makes him a very difficult dog to address. for me, when I take a dog in, I look for specific aspects. They've got to be at least 35 inches at the withers, 150-pound minimum, with at least 6 to 9 attacks on human beings. Resource guarding, male prejudice, human prejudice, doesn't matter to me. It's to be expected. I've got videos of there where I'm feeding him raw beef bones with other dogs in the same aspect. They all have specific types of behaviors that are quite dysfunctional. By creating integration in a parental aspect of supervision is how we can help dogs stabilize and downtrain. And it's just like the manager of a large office. You've got different personalities, or being friends with 10 different people. And one person, everyone says, well, why are you friends with that person? She's an idiot. And you're like, well, because I understand his or her background. So human empathy viscerally in that application. So when I work with these dogs, like Griffin, I'm addressing his behaviors. I'm looking at and seeing those sentient trait markers extremely quickly. And obviously I have to have a pretty good accuracy or I would be critically injured.
And he's free in your house, muzzle free.
He's free range, yes.
Is he around?
I think he's like, David. So he's probably not there. He may not come out there. David.
Do you ever live in Surrey, James?
I am. I'm near Tynehead.
Oh, because I met a gentleman who in a building I lived there who had a Great Dane in an apartment, and it was by King George SkyTrain station. Was that you?
That's me.
Awesome. We were neighbors. We lived in the same building. That the Edge. Did you live at the Edge?
Yeah, right. I was on the 4th floor.
Yeah, that's right. And I was like, you live in an apartment with a Great Dane? I was like, oh my God, really?
Oh, no.
And I had my little min pin out there, Rocky.
Oh, I don't remember. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. Well, it's hard to forget a guy. To me, it was just like living in an apartment with a Great Dane. I never forgot that. And you told me that they're really quite low energy dogs because they're quite big, right? And they're great apartment dogs. And I never would have thought.
Wow, that's 2013, 2014.
That's right. Yeah, and I left there, 2017.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool,
hilarious.
You guys.
Yeah.
That's gorgeous. I mean, wow. I love the way the world works.
Mm-hmm.
Synchronicity. It's cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, I want to get back to you're doing. So how is he doing?
You have 10 minutes.
How is Griffin doing?
The integration is good. There are some very difficult situations every once in a while because, again, he's not on any drugs at all. He's been completely weaned off prior to showing up. So I'm dealing with his raw psychological behaviors, while he's also addressing the fact that now he is much more cognizant and just alert because he's not drugged out anymore. So those aspects then cause an iceberg of behaviors to start surfacing as well. So
he's your only dog right now.
I have 5.
So he's mixing with your other dogs.
Yeah, so he's free range. So I have 2 other Great Danes with significant, previously significant behaviors. One attempted to kill several dogs, and another one has been declared dangerous by animal control in Vancouver. Then I have Minky here as well, and then Sammy, my little Formosan with 2 legs. So I have to deal with that societal structure within the home as well to make sure that he is not attacking other dogs and they're not attacking him. Or
how did you introduce him?
He was muzzled for a little bit because he was quite not happy with me. And so he was muzzled when he arrived here. And then I work on touching him, letting him understand body behavior and the context of that so that he understands that he's not being hurt or hit. It's clearly evident that he has been beaten. He has been teased and other aspects that are just full distraught. And so what he has learned to be integrated because I'm there parenting, I'm there supervising. He is able to trust that I'm going to keep him safe. And the other dogs here are also understanding that I'm keeping them safe from him. And if something happens, I'm going to give holy heck to them, but not to the point where I go crazy and go, like people do, and they start yelling and screaming. I'm going to raise the volume of my voice when I'm talking to them, as opposed to my tone or emotional shriekness in the voice, so that then the dog understands I'm still in control. You're not going to listen to somebody shrieking out at you versus the person goes, calm down or calm down. So we want to do that. And also there have been interactions where I have physically stepped in and it's quite scary. I'm 5'11", 190 pounds. It's quite scary when a dog who's the top of his head to my chest and he's barking at the other dog and I'm standing in between. So it's been very scary at times.
So tell our listeners where they can find out more about you and watch these videos as you're working with the dogs that you've got and past ones as well.
Okay, so my website is arfarfbarkbark.com, and my rescue is arfarfbarkbark Rescue Foundation, a registered nonprofit with the CRA. And then you can go to any of my social media platforms, TikTok at arfarfbarkbark, Instagram, Facebook, obviously, and Twitter, and LinkedIn as well under arfarfbarkbark. And you can see my videos on YouTube channel. I haven't done a lot in the past a little bit just because I'll be honest with you, and I'll confess publicly, I'm a bit of an introvert, so I'm not a big social person myself. And so it is something that I will start to work forward to it. I am working on a couple of projects, like I said earlier, that should hopefully be launching to help literally fundamentally change the perspective of dog training as well as academia itself.
And I know you started a petition, which surprised me because I didn't realize it wasn't illegal to eat dog and cat. You started a change petition,
Yes.
right? Tell us about that and how people can get involved, because I was horrified. I had no idea.
It is not illegal. So it is not a criminal activity to be able to kill a dog or cat or any animal. Is not illegal to do so as long as it's done humane. And humane is an entirely relative perspective when it comes to any aspects of animal welfare. And so you can literally, and I hate saying this because there's going to be some crazy people out there, but you can literally kill a dog if you're going to consume if you're going to eat them. So it's not illegal. So what I did is I started the petition, and that petition has about 120,000 signatures. It's kind of stalled a little bit right now, waiting to see what Member of Parliament, Honorable Ken Hardy, he had met with me. We met in person, obviously last year, and had discussions about it. And he had checked with the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Justice and confirmed there's no laws against it yet. And so he was going to table it on the floor. I have asked him a couple of times. His responses have become political now, which is really just another frustration of that system. But I am hoping to move it forward again, and I'm going to be a bit more urgent in my my discussions.
Let's include it in our links if we can, because Absolutely. I think our listeners would really love to sign that. I think it's important, and hopefully it would create a change across the board, because the other thing we see with animals being abused is they get picked up, they get saved, they get rescued, but nothing happens to the person who was doing the abuse. And so that needs to change, I think, as well.
The difficulty is that it's a political aspect that's involved with rescue organizations that have been given quasi-judicial powers. So I'm not going to ascribe any specific organizations within any of the provinces or nationally, even though I'm quite disappointed in the aspect of political aspirations versus animal rights. Right. Or welfare. My goal is, and this is again with these two other projects that I'm working with, is to one day be able to have dogs recognized as functional sentient beings, to be provided limited legal rights. And once we afford that, then we have a movement. And my theory on that part is, if your dog is attacked by another person's dog, you can actually sue for not just veterinary bills, but you can sue for training. So the gray area, the elephant in the room is, well, what is the court awarding those damages for training? Well, the training is for psychological impairment. So that's a gray area. So hopefully one day it'll be a presentable aspect to the Supreme Court of Canada or to SCOTUS in the United States, Supreme Court of the United States. That is the hope. I mean, it's going to cost tens of millions of dollars to launch something like that. And we're going to need a specific test case on that part. That's when we can start to affect change. Right. Then the kill shelters are gone.
And do you need any help fundraising at the moment, or volunteers, anything our listeners can do to help?
I am horrible at administration. So when people have asked me in the past, I don't know how to do it. I'm organically.
Maybe you need an administrator.
I would love that.
Okay, so if somebody's listening out there who wants to step up and help him I understand what you're talking about, James, to get organized and maybe lead some of these things for him, that would be of interest to you, right?
Absolutely.
To talk to them, so you can send them an email. Here, I'm your PR person. How's that?
Thank you, Tasha.
And I know you're offering a discount for Conscious Living Radio listeners as well for private training, a 2-hour session. You're offering a discount if they use the letters CLR, right?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Make sure I get all that information. We'll get it all on the website as we publish and create, a page for the program. Yeah, that'd be great.
And for you, James, one more thing from your heart to the world, what would be the most important thing you want our listeners to know that would help dogs have better lives?
Is to understand that we can viscerally evolve societal perspectives, evolutional throughout the entire species of humans themselves, so that we have a more cogent and appreciative understanding of life itself.
Awesome.
Great.
Appreciate you joining us. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. I learned a lot. I'm gonna have to stop talking to my dog so much. Who would have thought?
You'll see the difference of them.
Well, it made so much sense when you were talking about less words, get confused, not understand. It's like,
I love to
makes
treat
sense.
them like a child. I think I knew that when I was a kid, and my friend wanted to have a baby. And I said, well, before you have a baby, why don't you have a dog? Because you'll know what kind of parent you're going to be. And she was so insulted. She never talked to me again. She cut me off because of that comment. And I'm like, whoa, I really believe that. I think the way you...
Maybe she needed some dog training.
Maybe she needed James. Anyway, we've got you now, and love that you joined us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, James.
And good luck with Griffin. Keep us in the loop.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, give us a call out, Tasha.
Oh, you've been listening to Conscious Living Radio, 100.5 FM in Vancouver, Co-op Radio. I'm Tasha Sims.
And I'm Marc Caron.
Thanks for joining us. And we're on Wednesdays, 6 to 7 p.m., 100.5.
See you next time.